22, the Montara Water and Sanitary District Board of Directors meeting. Can we have roll call, please?
Okay. Director Decker?
Here.
Director Harvey?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Slater Carter?
Present.
Director Boyd is not present.
All right. Are there any oral comments for items other than those on the for any items other than those on the agenda? Go ahead, Greg. You had your hand up first.
Thanks, Jim, and congratulations and thanks for your years of service, my man.
Thank you.
But,
is this my last meeting?
No.
I don't know.
It is not.
But the issue I wanted to raise was not just to honor you, Jim. I wanted to mention that I had sent an email to the board about Harold Furman, who many of you realize died tragically a month or so ago. I've been in touch with the county parks, and they have a huge backlog. They don't have any room for memorial benches. Trading emails with the woman who runs the park trust. But so I wondered if it was possible, and obviously I don't need an answer today, but if it was possible that there was a space on Montara's property, MWSD's property, for a bench to honor Harold. So I just wanted to mention that I had sent that email and hope for some reply.
Greg, I'm just going to confirm that we received the email and that we're currently looking into if this is something that we can do if there's a space, etc. So we'll get back to you on that for sure.
Okay. Okay, and Lisa.
Thank you.
Lisa Ketchum.
Yes, I came before you last December where we discussed with Recology options for providing wheeled green waste carts to Pillar Ridge homeowners, and the board had agreed to form a committee to nail down the details. So tonight I just have an update for you. The committee never met. Recology required Pillar Ridge management to do an opt-in survey for residents to receive a green cart, which Pillar Ridge management conducted while repeatedly requesting the carts for everybody. 25 residents did not respond to the survey and couldn't be reached, as well as 2 new homes that were being installed. Recology finally delivered a shipment of 32-gallon green carts in mid-September to most residents, but not all. We do not have exact numbers or addresses of those who missed out. The delivery did not even cover everyone who had opted in. Since the delivery, green waste in resident-owned carts is no longer collected, an outcome which was not mentioned in the opt-in survey. This fall, the last word from Recology to Pillar Ridge management was they will not deliver any more carts. So Pillar Ridge has run into a big brick wall in regards to our green waste service, and with the encouragement of the park owner, Millennium Housing, I'm asking the board for your help to facilitate restoring green waste, access to green waste service for those who have had it cut off because they don't have a Recology green cart. On a happier note, I'm glad to see that way more people are participating in the green waste service since the Recology carts were supplied, encouraging and making it easier for people to do the right thing for the environment. And also, I want to thank you for including the residents of Pillar Ridge in your mail distribution list for newsletters and public notices this past year. That's it from me. Thanks.
Elisa, if you could please have the Pillar Ridge management contact me. I did have contact with them a number of times, but I think it would be great to hear from them. I have not heard a request from the Pillar Ridge management so far about the green service. So if they could get in contact with me, that would be great. I'm going to try the same. I'm going to reach out to them as well.
Basically, this is an issue that I think you may have talked with the resident manager here as to
I've
You-
talked to Paul a number of times, yes.
Yeah, and he, of course, is in close contact with his boss at the management company, who is the one I referred to as Pillar Ridge Management. She was negotiating with Recology on the phone back and forth, and as I explained, the result of that was that what Pillar Ridge Management was asking for was not what happened. So I raised this up to the owner of the park, Millennium Housing, George Turk and Lori Caraway, and had they agreed with my concern, and I guess they have their own approach to things, to getting things done when there's a roadblock. But I said, I know you folks, and we have a long history. I mean, you mentioned your 20-year anniversary, and as somebody on the board, and it was Scott or Paul at the time, made a comparison to the struggle that the Pillar Ridge homeowners had in the early 2000s to get the county to pass mobile home rent control, which then resulted in a change of ownership in the park to Millennium Housing and wonderful results. And the idea being this comparison of the little guy, fighting this battle and winning. And so we do get more consideration from Millennium Housing. And so they want to help. And like I say, I was encouraged to reach out to the board members because we're local people here. And I was thinking also following my comments of tonight with a letter to you with more detail on the history. This goes way back to when this was Seacoast Disposal. And I could share that. The letter could come from Millennium as well, whatever works for you. I understand, I'm just coming here talking to you, and I'm just one person, but this isn't just a repeat of what you told Paul. This is a conversation you need to have with Lori Caraway at Millennium Housing, because they'd like to know if you can help with this, basically, and if you can't, they would like to know. So maybe it would be easier if I just connect you, Clemens, with Lori Caraway. Or
That's exactly what I'm saying, and
okay.
I'll try to reach out to her in the past. I did talk to Paul, like I said, but it would be good to hear from the Pillar Ridge Management directly.
So when you say management, the owner of the park would do?
Lori or George, yeah.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
So it sounds like we have the owner, the manager, we have you, Lisa, we have Chris, we have Clemens, we have the people that live there. We have all these. We have 5 different factions involved, and I think we had that committee meeting. I think we've discussed this. There have been decisions have been made. So Clemens will take care of that for us. Thanks, Clemens.
I'm sorry. I thought I was included in the committee, and I was not invited to a meeting.
I don't recall the committee meeting.
I don't either.
Yeah. I know there was some communication between the committee members and you as well. For example, I know last week you had contact with Scott about all of this. So I think that is how the committee has worked on this, not meeting, but communicating, and also including you in the communication.
Right. That's correct.
What I can't understand, what I would like to understand better, is that I don't know how the franchise agreement works, what your role in it is. I assumed that I understand. So we're told that we're a corporate client, one entity, and yet it seems, particularly on this issue, that Millennium doesn't even have a say in this. Recology is the only one that has a say, and they get to do whatever they want. Is that the case? I guess I just need to know, so that if you can't or feel it's not your role or whatever it is to get involved in this difference of opinion, or or any thoughts on fairness, it would help me to hear it from the board members. Just as Clemens wants to talk to Pillar Ridge Management or the owner of the park, I would like to hear from the board members. I know we can't do this tonight, but this is my quandary.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right. So the consent agenda.
Hello, hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. Catherine.
Thank you.
So this is an item not on the agenda.
None of these items are on the agenda.
Okay.
First, I have been working with a group up and down the coast that is working to get a sort of central number to help people take care of feral cats. Half Moon Bay was going to have an ordinance that was going to make it illegal to feed feral cats, and there have been feral cat groups or people who will feed and care for feral cats, which includes trapping them, spaying them, getting them vaccinated, and then continuing to feed them for the rest of their lives. It keeps the feral cat population from growing, and is a kindness to an animal that is only semi-wild. So I will keep people posted on that, because I know it's not necessarily a district issue, but I know people in Montara and Moss Beach and up and down the coast who have been concerned about feral cats. So this seemed like a good place to mention it.
Okay.
I read an article. This is the third year of La Nina, and it was a fascinating article, and it said, we're either going to get more rain or less rain or the same rain, depending on what happens. So
Okay.
we can keep posted.
Okay.
At SAM, and I wanted to make this for the people who were watching at the beginning of the meeting, the board voted to have a drug testing test of the wastewater at SAM. It's a nominal cost. We're getting the tests at cost. We're going to be testing for fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, and nicotine. I guess that helps make sure that things work, as well as for COVID, so we can follow the progress. It's a temporary thing that's going to be going for 3 months, and it will be interesting. It's for information. It's just going to be interesting to see what the results are. And last, I had an epiphany last night. I was listening to I had been listening a couple times to the Half Moon Bay City Council forum on KHMB. And I suddenly realized, after listening to two of the city council candidates say they were both in favor of consolidation of the sewer system, we are at a level of consolidation already. And it's a level of consolidation that is fair, because it allows each community to be in charge of their own rates, as opposed to giving our rate making ability over to a single group. And so the question I have is, what would Half Moon Bay do differently if there were to be a single 5-member board up and down the coast? They would probably still have 3 people on the board. Montara would have 1 and Granada would have 1. So the votes would probably routinely be 3-2. That's not so good when you want to be taking care of your own rates, and particularly your own sewer structure, your own sewer infrastructure. So it just strikes me that when people say, oh, we need consolidation, things would be so much better. I think those of us who care for independence need to be saying, how so? Why would us not having our own rate-making ability be better? Why would Montara and Moss Beach not having our own community representation be better? So that's just kind of a thought on just sort of looking at the argument a little bit differently. And I was thinking of that, and I would recommend that people listen to the KHMB, the 2-hour debate or discussion between the 3 Half Moon Bay City Council members for District 3. It is enlightening, but I just want to cheer on our own independence and keep going from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Peter?
I'd like to go back to Lisa's frustration with nothing having been done about their recycle bins. If my memory serves me correctly, when we had a meeting with Chris attending from Recology, there was an agreement that she would be part of the committee. And there was also, if I remember correctly again, there was also a willingness on her part at that time to make the recycle bins smaller and to buy recycle bins for the people who needed those at Pillar Ridge. And that would have solved the whole problem, because then the problem was always with the green bins, that they were way too big. And if you have so many green bins around, then the traffic would be impacted. And I thought that was the solution. So first of all, I don't understand that the committee never met. And the second thing is, if Lisa at that time was willing to solve the problem by giving out the smaller bins, then why has nothing been done? Is this correct, Lisa? Am I understanding this correctly? Is this what you understood at the time that Chris was attending our meeting?
Yes, that I asked if the 32-gallon, she could do that. And she said the only hesitancy she had was that it would need to be back ordered. I said, that's not a problem.
Yeah, so that's the solution. So we just need to ask Chris, and then Chris is in agreement.
So
come up with the 32-gallon bins, and then we're done.
I'm just going to say this. We don't have this item agendized. And then I'm going to say that the district agreed to provide 30-gallon cans to anyone who wants to have this service in Pillar Ridge. And that was implemented. That is happening. That has happened. So Lisa's complaint is a little bit different than that. Okay. So again, I'm going to say that we have worked together with management and implemented what was agreed upon at the meeting and what was agreed upon with management. So we're going to look into, Lisa, thank you very much for bringing this to us, and particularly for being the voice of Pillar Ridge. It's wonderful that you're showing up. It's great that you're doing all of this. We're listening. I want you to understand that we're listening. I'm going to look into this, but the reason why I want to speak with Pillar Ridge management is because we're working with them. We're doing what we agreed upon with them as well. So I'm going to further take the opportunity here because I have my hand raised. I'm going to switch the topic now. I'm going to talk about what I wanted to talk about in items that are not on the agenda. I really want to thank our staff for the past week's work. We had a relatively significant earthquake with a number of aftershocks. We also had the first rains. All of this is really resulting in slight movement in the ground. So what we're seeing is a high number of leaks. We go through this every fall. This time around, it's a little more pronounced. I'm assuming it has to do with the earthquake and the recent movement. So thanks to the crew, they're doing a lot of work and overtime right now and keeping everything together and doing what they are trained to do and used to do, but it's a little more frequent right now. Thank you.
Okay, Catherine, do you have your hand up again?
No, I forgot and
Okay.
hit the wrong.
And,
Sorry.
and Peter, do you have your hand up?
Yes,
again?
I do have my hand up because I want to chime in. What Clement said, I was going down 6th Street where my daughter lives the other day, and I saw this huge stream next to the road with clearly a leak being attended to by the crew. And the next day when I came by with the dog, everything was done and it was completely fixed. So Clemens, congratulations.
Thank you.
The team did a great job.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Peter. All right. Okay, so if there's no other comments, we'll go on to the consent agenda. 10 items. 1, approve minutes for regular scheduled board meetings, October 9th, October 6th, and October 20, 2022. 2, approve financial statements for September 2022. 3, approve warrants for November 1st, 2022. 4, SAM flow report. 5, monthly review of current investment portfolio. 6, connection permit applications received. 7, monthly water production report. 8, rain report. 9, monthly solar energy report. And 10, monthly public agency retirement service report for July 2022. All right, does any board member want to pull any of those items for discussion?
No, thank you. I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, Tracy, roll call vote.
Okay. Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Aye.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
All right. There's no old business, new business. First is the review and possible action concerning remote meetings during emergency conditions under Government Code Section 54953 of the Brown Act. Clemens, thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for reading the title. I won't repeat it. It's the usual item that allows this board to meet remotely for the month of November. So passing this resolution allows us to hold this meeting via Zoom, the second meeting this month, or any other special meeting we would hold. The next meeting, the first meeting in December 1st, we will bring this item up again and ask for the same decision. So we're asking to adopt the resolution next in order.
I make that motion.
I will second, but I'd like to make a comment. My comment is I have heard COVID cases are going up on the coast side. And in the paper recently was a note that we have a triple respiratory flu, COVID, and other respiratory infections, tridemic going on in the area. And so everyone be careful out there. It's, we all need to keep our health. Thank you.
Hey. I mentioned that I just came back from Portugal, and Portugal has over like 98%. 98% of the people in Portugal have had all their shots, the Pfizer shots, and no one's wearing masks, and infection rates are extremely low in Portugal. So that's a country that is a democracy, but run by the military, where everyone gets shots. No one complains. They just get their shots and go on with life, and it works. So anyway, all right. So did we take the vote?
No, we need to take the vote.
Okay.
Roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Director Decker,
Aye.
Director Harvey,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Aye.
Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Okay, second item on new business, review and possible action concerning impact of inflation and discussion of water and sewer rate updates. Right, Clemens, you want to introduce that?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I'm going to introduce it just very briefly. We had a request at the last meeting from Catherine. So to bring our financial consultant in to talk a little bit about the current financial climate. I think the word that Catherine used was recession. So we all understand, we all are paying bills and understand the developments of the recent years. And so we asked Bardo Wells, Alex Handler is here tonight to essentially talk about and hand us a staff report is in the packet that gives us a little bit of overview over how really should public agencies, what can they do in this climate, and then what are we doing in this climate? We also have Peter Medina, our accountant here, just in case there are questions about our finances, details about those. So with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Alex. Alex, tell us what you know about this topic, please.
Sure, will do. Thanks. Nice to see everybody. And also, we thought this was a fortuitous time to also talk about the water and sewer rates as well.
Yes.
Because they haven't been increased in a few years, and you're due for water and sewer rate increases, or at least evaluating that. But inflation, I don't need to tell you anything new about that. It spiked up, the highest in 40 years. I included some statistics in that staff report, both on the operating side, but also on the capital side. Costs have gone up quite a bit. And, as an enterprise, a utility enterprise, you've got to pay more, and really your main source of revenues is rates. So ultimately all this gets passed through to ratepayers, but it also means you've got to keep your rates on top of the inflation. And that's stuff you've historically done. Historically, I was going to say water, inflation for water and wastewater agencies, everyone always thinks of the CPI, Consumer Price Index, and that's what consumers pay for, food and services and housing. But historically, inflation has always been higher for utility enterprises like water and wastewater, whose businesses is large, a lot of regulatory requirements, increased costs over time, a lot of staffing and capital needs, which have tended to increase more than, underlying goods and services. So, and you're getting hit with supply chain disruptions too. It's not only hitting inflation, it's actually availability of materials. Some of the other agencies I work for haven't been able to get as much done as they were hoping with their pipeline replacement programs and other things, because the supplies are coming in slower and not everything's available as quickly as it used to be. So what do you do with it? I think the same thing as every other agency out there. Whenever you do rate studies, you've done a good job, building in inflation and keeping your rates escalating in the right direction most years. When we looked back at the water rates, it was, every year from 2010 to 2018, there was, steady, gradual annual water rate increases to stay on top of inflation. Similar story on the sewer side. In recent years, you've actually stepped it up some more with the water system reliability charge that was implemented in 2020, which was a big increase for capital funding, and you've only partially implemented that. And the same story on the sewer side, going back a few years, I think it's since about 2018, it wasn't just inflationary increases you've been implementing much larger rate increases. Most recently on the sewer side, 3 years of 9% rate increases, as you're not only keeping up with inflation, but also, generating more and more money for capital projects, because you've got a lot of old infrastructure that needs to be replaced. So, when we do these, this is an issue. A lot of other agencies I'm working with now are also concerned about the inflation. And what do you do is, when you do your rate studies, we always build in some inflation factors. Obviously, no one foresaw the levels that were there right now, but I think, we'll take another look at what factors are good to build into your upcoming rate studies. You never have a crystal ball with these rate studies. You try to build in, be a little conservative, aim your rates in the right direction. Fast forward a few years, you come back, and if things came in a little worse than you thought, well, you got to adjust course and do a little more rate increases. If they came in better, maybe the rate increases don't need to be as much next time. So I think with rates, it's an ongoing process. You set rates, take a few steps on, reevaluate, and adjust course as needed. And I think just a few other things I'll just mention that, what the district has done with cost inflation, in addition to keeping up with your rates, is on the labor side, you've traditionally adjusted your salaries to keep up with inflation, to keep your salaries competitive and retain, good staff. Whenever you're doing capital projects, if you do get a very favorable bid, the districts try to capitalize on that by extending the service contracts in some cases, or having change orders to see if you can keep these favorable prices while the contractors in the area to do some additional work and take advantage of that. Whenever the interest rates have facilitated, you've taken advantage of refinancing your debt. Most recently, your general obligation refunding bonds, they have a rate of 1.14% now. And that's the GO bonds that were used to acquire the water system originally. And you've done that with other debt as well. Your PNC equipment lease was renegotiated in the past, and the other outstanding debt you have is through, state subsidized funding programs. So you've kept your debt service low. And I think this kind of leads into, yes, inflation is higher now. Is it going to stay at this level? Nobody knows. It probably tail back down somewhat, maybe not down to the super low levels where it was in recent history. But, it's been a little while since we've done water and sewer rate studies for the district. We started looking into the water rates actually a year or two ago, maybe a year and a half ago, but it was deemed that it really wasn't necessary to do a rate increase since you had just implemented that water system reliability charge. But I think the plan on the water side is, it's been a few years since you've done the regular water rate increases. Let's take a look at the finances and the rates, and maybe, I think the staff recommendation was to, kick it back to the finance committee initially, and, hash this through with them over the next month or so, and come back to the board in December with some preliminary findings and potentially recommendations. And a similar process would follow with the sewer rate study, because again, you did sewer rates, you did 3 years of increases, but that was, going back over 3 years, and those rates have run their course. The last rate increases went to the effect this last July. So the plan is to, reevaluate that in the upcoming, handful of months, and come back to the board on the sewer side, following behind the water rate study by a few months, and, work with the finance committee, and then again, bring that back to the board, what the findings are and what some options and recommendations might be to move forward with sewer rates. The water rates typically get adjusted every January 1 when water use is low. It's a little too late to do that, but it's possible to get your water rates in effect by March 1 if there were going to be some water rate increases. And then the sewer rates typically get adjusted on July 1 of each year, because those get put on the property tax rolls. So the timing, just follows soon thereafter the water rates. I'll just leave it at that so I don't keep rambling on, but I'll turn it back to Clemens and the board.
All right. Peter, did you want to add anything to that?
I think Greg should have his comment first. He had his hand up first.
Okay. I was thinking of Peter Medina.
Oh, yes.
Peter,
Correct.
Peter, did you want to add anything to that?
No, nothing in particular. All that Alex went over, I said, factually correct. I said, we've talked about these issues a number of times in committee. We, during the budget process last year, we, as a group, kind of saw this coming as well, and it was discussed. And so I said, just as time continues to move forward, of course, we're going to look at it even more with the new budget cycle coming up. I know this is it's crucial as far as trying to figure out kind of what's around the bend, and it's extremely difficult in these times. But budgeting is never easy, and the rates are the way. But it's always a balancing act, as you guys all know. And so having Alex be present for these meetings and play his role is very important. So, but like I said, nothing in particular to add. I know that it's been discussed a number of times, so I'm interested to see where we go from here.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Greg.
Well, I'm sorry to report that I agree that this agenda topic and the subsequent follow through is critical to the district. Some of you are aware that I came up with a methodology and applied it to 20 public works agencies in the county. My findings are based on published financial statements, which is a summary method of analysis, that the district has a $40 million shortfall between the reserves on hand and those necessary to replenish the assets without borrowing. And of course, this is more important now because if you borrow every $1 million is going to add $1.3 million on top of that in cost and interest over the coming 30 years. So I encourage the board to do this. I would point out a few things, though, that I think are relevant to your analysis. Remember when you did the asset replenishment fee, or the asset water system reliability charge, as you called it, the fixed charge, you only adopted half of the recommended amount. So I think you need to take another look at that. You need to take a look at what reserves you need to have to replenish based on the current replacement cost of the assets to be replaced, not based on their book value. You need to include your share of the SAM assets. You need to take a look at the fact that you accepted $1 million in donations of new assets from property owners, and thus the asset replenishment burdens on those dedicated assets, which affect or benefit only those users, are now being absorbed by the rest of the ratepayers. And I have to also raise the question that you need to include the connection fees in this. If you may remember, when I last looked at this about 3 years ago, there was about $100,000 difference between what you were charging and what a pro rata share of the asset foundation would require you to charge for new joiners. Now, of course, inflation has kicked up a lot. You have raised your connection fee charges a significant amount. I don't know what the new number is, but if it's anything like $100,000 a connection, with approximately 100 new connections coming in current years, with the Cypress Point development, the big wave, we're talking $10 million. So it's a big deal to get those numbers right. So I encourage this analysis. And I will mention in passing that Bartle Wells did a rate study in Pacifica, and they omitted the assets in the plant from their connection fee analysis. I wrote the president of the firm. I did not get what I considered a good reply. So, and Alex, I believe you're copying on this. So I think this whole thing needs intense focus, and I commend you for looking at it. I'm afraid the news will not be good, but the reserves in Montara are approximately half of what they are in the agencies who are members of Silicon Valley Clean Water, for example, on a percentage basis. So I'll be happy to contribute the copies of the analysis and the proposed methodology to those of you who haven't seen them and participate in the coming effort. I view it as extremely critical to the district. If there's one district, however, that I know of that has the brains to solve this problem, Montara is that district. Other districts, I have less hope. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Greg. Peter Decker.
I have seen Greg's communication, and I'm very happy with his input. I've also asked him for a solution, and he has come up with a possible solution the way he sees it. I think that those are very good suggestions, and we will definitely work with those as we are having our first Finance Committee meeting regarding the rates. I also want to say that last year, looking back over last year, we have booked quite a big success in terms of the income on the connection fees. In fact, we have a $310,000 increase in the or difference between the budget and the income in connection fees. So we have been successful definitely in increasing the connection fees. Also, we have done work on our reserves, and we have increased and improved upon the way that we administer our reserves. We have also found that the excess funds that we have can be at a better rate invested than they are now. And that is also an issue that we need to discuss. But I'm happy to say that last year we went in the right direction. The results were better than expected and better than budgeted. So I think we're going in the right direction. But as you said, Greg, we do need to make absolutely sure that we consider all of these factors, including the price increases, including the wage increases that are no doubt coming this coming year, and making sure that we make a fair offer to our customers, and that we think out very well what our customers can afford and what they cannot afford, while keeping the financial stability of our organization in prime as a primary mover. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Catherine.
Thank you. Yeah, I asked for this, and I've also asked for this same agenda item at SAM, because I think it's really important for the ratepayers and for our records to say that to tell people that we've been discussing this, and that there are going to be probably, if things continue the way they are, somewhat of a shocking request for rate increases. And it's not that we're wasting money, it's that we're trying to keep up with the aging and replacement of our system and repair of our system, because if we don't, it's going to be even worse to try and catch up again. We've spent a whole lot of money, well over $20 million, 20 years ago when we bought the company, and we've been working on fixing it up. If we don't keep it up, we will have to respend to replace things and that could have been maintained with a longer life. So I want folks, as we head into the budget and as we head into looking at these necessary upcoming rate increases, for them to realize that this is not anything done by choice by the board, except that we're doing it by choice in the best interests of the district. And that we have been working hard to get our finances in shape. As you mentioned, Alex, if we go back and look at where we started as a district, it was scary. And our consultants and our management and our crew and our boards have just been amazing in our ability to get us to where we are now, and we don't want to lose ground. And I think it's important to pay attention to this as we're heading into the budget. I was just looking at the PARS Capital Appreciation Index Plus for the retirement. And some of you may remember when I was very hesitant about some of the components of our retirement program. The 1-year general investment return on this retirement fund has been minus 12.5%. That's something, fortunately, we have a young crew and we will be able to make it up with a good market. But these are the kinds of things we need to be calculating and looking at. And when people look at our costs, my husband took our son out today for lunch, to the local taqueria and 2 carnitas plates was over $40. That's the kind of things that we're looking at with the construction index, those kinds of increases. And the increases people are seeing in their day-to-day lives are probably even greater. And Alex and Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, when you look at the construction index, that tends to be an expensive index to try and keep even with, and yet that's what we have to do. So I want to thank you everyone for doing this. It's just goes to show, I mean, there's going to be, what was I hearing today? That there's a diesel shortage coming. It's on the East Coast, they're rationing diesel. Kerosene is up to $7 a gallon. People are going to be having trouble heating their houses. We're going to be looking at major increases in electricity as we shift over to try and change our infrastructure system. All of these get added into the bills. And I just want our ratepayers to understand that this is what they are paying for. And but we will keep the water flowing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Both directions.
Clemens.
Yeah, thank you. And I also just wanted to add to a little bit what Greg spoke about, the reserves. I know he's well aware of what I'm going to say, but I think it's worth highlighting that the district owns, we have 2 separate functions. And I think if you would look at the 2 functions, you would see a difference between the sewer side and the water side. And one of the reasons is that the sewer side, the first function that the district had, and that's since a very long time, since '58. The water side was added, as Catherine said, purchased in 2003. So since 19 years, we are operating the system, and that sounds like a very long time. However, the system was in complete disrepair when the district took on the system. So having followed the finances along, I'm going to say the system that, or what Montara Water and Sanitary District did in these 19 years was very heavy financial lifting, putting a lot of projects in the ground, getting the water quality straightened out. People have to remember that the water quality was, I'm going to just say questionable at the predecessor company. The water quantity was simply not there. Tanks ran dry. So this is not just a simple system fix. This is almost a building up of a system in the last 19 years. And now we finally have started to build reserves on the water side. And yes, we have to do more. But I'm very happy to see that we're at least going in that direction and we're able to achieve what we did. And Catherine is right. We have to stay on top of everything. That we don't want to run into a risk. Essentially, now that our first replacement cycles start, we want to be able to finance those. So I think it's a great idea to look at our financial structure. Let's start with the water rates. As we agreed in prior meetings, we know we have to take a look at the sewer rates. And I think we may want to think about also looking at some of our connection fees. Some were adjusted a long time ago, others more recent, but I think we should have a little bit of discussion along those lines. Thank you.
And Jim, I have one more comment, if I may.
Yeah. Let me make a comment first, Catherine.
Of course.
Catherine, your comment, Clemens, your comment, really important. Greg, to understand that when we got this district, as you said, Clemens, in 2003, There had been no maintenance for 5 years previously. Water was not running. Tanks were falling apart. We had to rebuild the staff and the directors. We had to rebuild this district. We had to rebuild it from falling apart. And so that work has been done every year for the last 19 years. And we have, this district and the ratepayers have done everything they can to make these improvements and get the district back on its feet. In the first 25 and to 10 years, we've done everything we can to keep things moving. It's not as if we were just caught napping 3 years ago and now have to build up reserves, or it's not as if we were napping 3 years ago and we got behind the 8 ball on inflation. Every year we've done everything we can to rebuild the district and to bring up reserves and do everything. So for those of you that weren't there, it was a bleak situation, and the staff and the board and the citizens have come together and made this thing viable, and everyone has done the best they can and will continue to do the best that they can. So I just want to make sure there's no blame or no fault here. We're moving as forward as the best and as fast as we can possibly move. And that's always been the way it's been. All right, Catherine, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this community is very lucky that we bought it when we did. We've had reasonable interest rates. Having as our local coastal program new connections. So we have done all of our planning on water resources, resource needs, pipe sizes, everything like that, based on a set of documents that we had no control over. It was the county and coastal commission. I am now hearing there was, as some people have heard us talk about, SB 9 and 10. I have heard a rumor, and I find it hard to bite into and accept, but nonetheless, after SBs 9 and 10, I can't say it's impossible. And that is that somebody would be proposing to put housing on the airport. Get rid of the airport, close the airport down, and put housing there. Now, I know everybody here in our community would fight like heck, and it would be a very, very long project if it got in at all. That said, I don't want the citizens and ratepayers of Montara and Moss Beach having to upgrade all of our infrastructure to meet a doubling of our population between the build-out projections, because somebody in Sacramento or Redwood City decided that we need more houses here. I do know there are people who have been talking about putting affordable housing on the Caltrans right-of-way. That would be in Sacramento, that they were talking about using Caltrans surplus lands for that. Again, none of those houses, none of that residential or commercial would have been included in the build-out numbers. I think they should pay what we determine, something like Greg was saying, what the reserves would be that they would have to make up to buy into our system, rather than just what we have planned in our connection studies. So it's something, Christine, we would be needing to somewhat push and Alex, we'd be needing to somewhat push the standard formula for making connection charges. But our connection charges are pretty much based on the build out numbers. But if we go into build out numbers, say 10% more than is we've been planning for, we're going to be needing to make adjustments. And I think that 10% more needs to pay for it. Thank you.
Okay, Michelle, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was on the MCC meeting when Lisa Ketchum was doing a great primer on RENA. And she said pretty much categorically, in fact, really categorically, SB 9, SB 10 can't happen on the coast, mid-coast or Half Moon Bay, because we're in the coastal zone. So there's no good, and RENA is a planning document, which is not actually at this point in time enforceable on the coast because we're in the coastal zone. So I think that there's a little bit less danger in that regard. But the Coastal Commission could change. These things could change, but right now, build out is not going to happen in terms of SB 9, SB 10, from what I know.
Let me just add to that. I appreciate that, Michelle. And if I trusted Sacramento more than as much as I used to, I wouldn't be so worried. But some of the stuff they've been doing is a little frightening. And I do know that if you change your connection fees, all of a sudden you are somewhat liable. If you, for the incoming projects, are going to say, oh, you did that for discrimination. If we do it now, and if we start that logic and that algorithm now, then we have the protection of having thought about this first. So, and having established this policy. And
also, Greg, those two building projects that you mentioned haven't been charged or haven't applied for connection fees, which is a good thing at this point. So, Catherine's point is well taken to begin that process at this point. Are there any other comments to make? If not, we don't. Is there any action that we should take, Clemens, that we're heading for, or we're just a discussion to plan the rate to focus first on the rate studies? You have your go ahead.
If the board essentially refers the rate study process to the committee, so we're going to get working on it as Alex laid it out, okay, and we'll bring it back. So this was mainly an information item.
Okay, great. All right. So if there's no more comments, we'll go on to item number 3 of new business. Review and possible action concerning director meeting compensation. Go ahead, Clemens. You want to introduce that?
Yeah, thanks. So we talked about this already at the last meeting. Got a request to review the director compensation. It's currently at $75, and it has been at $75 for a very long time. I think actually, Christine, you found out for how long, but it's been decades, 30 plus years at least.
25 years, sorry to interrupt. But it could have gone back further than that. I just couldn't find it. That was the first.
Okay.
Anyway.
Then I think we can all agree that it's been $75 as far as anyone can think back. So it's been a long time. And I want to give this board quite a bit of credit for this because this was a very, this was a conscious choice by the board. This is not the first time that this item has been discussed. We discuss this item probably every 5 years or so. And the board has consciously chosen to keep this low. As Scott said at the last time, it's probably a privilege that this board has right now, and it's not something that can be assumed for any new board member coming in. So I think that is a little bit the motivation to look at this and encourage folks to consider becoming a Montara Water and Sanitary District Board member as well. And at least be compensated for the time that is spent, or a part of the time that is spent doing the work. It's quite a bit of involvement, of course. So we basically said we would really look at what can be done and come back with that to the board. So we got confirmation from a legal counsel that under the board can increase the compensation up to $100 per day. And that would be a maximum of $600 per month. That would already require an amendment to the district code. The compensation is in the district code. That means if this is to be changed, it needs to be done by ordinance, and an ordinance requires a noticed public hearing. Under the water code, the board can increase the compensation up to a maximum amount of $193.75. That's calculated basically from a long time ago. And that could not be exceeding, that payment cannot be paid more than 10 times per month or 10 days per month. Again, also a public hearing is required. So these are basically the two paths that the board can choose or use and discuss. At the last meeting, we heard a preference of $140 per day. But the board, of course, can discuss this tonight again. And any decision that would be made tonight, we could publish a public hearing notice tomorrow morning, and that would get us get us a public hearing for December 1st. So with that, back to the board.
Okay, go ahead, Christine.
Oh, thank you, President Pro Tem. Just one quick tweak to the staff report. I made a mistake in my calculations. Under the water code, we can actually increase up to a max amount of $168.75 instead of the $193.75. I'm sorry, I added incorrectly my calculations. So that represents 5% per year over and above $75 for the last 25 years, which is $68.75, which when added to $75 equals $168.75. That's the max amount that the board can consider if that's what it chooses to do.
So if the board decides tonight to go, like, say, for example, to $100 a meeting, then we would vote and go in that direction, and then you would publish a public hearing tomorrow morning, and then we could just have that public hearing at the next meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You would not decide tonight
Right.
how much, right? Yes, you're
We
correct.
not decide how much. We just say that we want to increase it and ask for a public hearing.
Correct.
Right. So the board then would have to vote tonight to do that. Correct. To have a public hearing.
I don't think a vote's necessary. I mean,
Okay.
direction is fine.
All right. So does the board want to give direction in that direction? Peter.
Confused. I'm confused. I thought we could increase the rate to $100 without having a public hearing.
Apparently, go ahead, Christine.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. No, a public hearing is required regardless of whether you go to 100 or above 100. And the reason is, as Clemens explained, is that the $75 is set in our code already. And so we would need to amend our code by ordinance. And whenever the board adopts an ordinance for any reason, public hearing is required. So that's where that comes from. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. So what's the board's direction? What's the board feeling? Catherine and Rick? Should we go in that direction? Catherine, go ahead. You're on mute there.
With my dog's interruptions, I had to put myself on mute. Anyway, I'm the one who brought this up. I discovered in my candidacy for the Harbor Board that they get $600 a month. Now and it's been that way for a long time, but then I went back and looked at when I started 26 years ago, it was $75. So I went on to a handy little app and I said, all right, $75, 26 years ago, how much is that in spending capability right now? And it's something like $26 or $35 or something. It has we have lost significant amounts of spending ability, particularly when I look at the price of 2 plates of carnitas at $40.
Geez, where was that? What restaurant was that?
Moss Beach. It was the little place in Moss Beach. That's what restaurant costs are getting to.
That little place in Moss Beach.
A little wonderful place that has been a mainstay for the whole community forever has to make ends meet. They have to pay their help and buy their groceries. And so it seemed to me, Scott and I were talking, and in fact, for the board members, this has been a labor of love for decades. But we're going to, some of us are getting older. Well, all of us are actually, to be honest, and we need to get some younger and new people involved. And when I mentioned $75 to my children who are in sort of the age group we'd like to get involved, they go, what? You know, I don't even get a write-off for it, for what I should be making. So it just seemed to me that as part of this, part of the longevity planning for the board, we need to be planning to be able to have it be worthwhile for people who are going to be spending a lot of time and energy on this too.
So I agree, Catherine, that some of us are getting older than others, apparently. But so is it the direction of the board to go ahead with the any board member disagree? Okay, Clemens, I think we have direction.
You know what? For whatever reason, I want you to repeat the direction because it was interrupted on my end. Okay. If you could just repeat the direction so I'm completely clear. So
the board is giving direction to announce a public meeting for the next meeting to vote to possibly increase the stipend per meeting. As an outgoing board member, I think this is, it's not going to do me any good, but I think it's really important. So, okay, so we've got that done. So let's go on to reports.
Do we need to vote on that, Clemens?
No, I already asked.
Okay,
And,
no, we're just giving direction.
Christine said no. We just have to give direction.
Okay.
So, so we're going to go on to reports. So, Catherine, you can keep speaking. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast-Side.
Uh-oh, I didn't look at my agenda, my most recent agenda. So we just had a finance committee meeting, and so that's where we talked about looking at the testing for information purposes for in the wastewater. And otherwise, I'll be honest, I can't remember. I've been working hard on just trying to pay attention to the Half Moon Bay City Council races and how that would affect Sam, and that has eaten up my time.
Sure.
I go on to the next agenda. Go on to the next agenda item. I will look at this, and then I'll get back to you on Sam.
That's fine. Okay, Rick, if you have any comments?
No.
Okay, then we'll go on. Mid-Coast Community Council. Greg, do you want to handle that?
Yeah. I don't think we'll spend a lot of time on this, but I would just point out we're dealing with some road safety concerns. Obviously, Harold's death was part of that. There are issues in El Granada and Montara we've held workshops on. We had a session on plastic turf and the problems with it. The board, the council wrote a letter opposing or questioning the Cypress Point development, raising a number of issues. I would mention I also presented a comment that I had made to the SAM board asking for an explanation of the sewer inflows, the dangerous inflows that appear to have come from Half Moon Bay, but we are still waiting for SAM to take some action to try and explain that. And then finally, we did have a session on the RENA numbers. I've done some subsequent research, which I'll write up, but it appears that there actually is the possibility that housing requirements in California should go down. It depends on which assumptions you base your analysis on. I found that quite surprising because the numbers were based on something like a $3 million increase, but there's an alternative procedures that could have been used which show a decrease. And of course, people have been leaving the state. So
Greg, could you repeat that? What has gone down? I didn't catch that.
Population in California. Did you notice the last census?
No, I didn't. You're cutting off for me. Could you repeat?
Okay.
What's going on? I apologize.
Jim, we're losing people.
Okay. We're losing people. All right. But not on the coast side necessarily.
No. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay. Rick, any report from CSDA and LAFCO?
CSDA is almost a defunct organization.
No, I attended the last meeting, and they had, and it was a good meeting, and so it's trying to get up on its knees.
Okay, and LAFCO, Rick.
I actually missed a meeting today. I'm sorry about that.
It was only a committee meeting, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's. I mean, that we all miss meetings. I can vouch for that.
Well, and let me speak on Sam then, because it was all good news. No wonder I couldn't remember it.
Okay.
Sam had filed for the annual comprehensive financial report for the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021. And we actually were awarded, and Peter Medina, you can chip in on this because you were part of it. We were actually got the association award for Sam's accounting and record keep and financial keeping, and it's a very high award. And it's considering where we were 5 years ago, with 3 audits uncompleted, and we have made tremendous progress, and I'm very, very proud of the SAM management and crew for achieving this, and we're going to keep applying for it every year. Now, once you've done the initial work, it's fairly it's not a big deal to keep applying year after year then.
And does that include accounting for granola bars?
Yes, it includes the granola bars and the coffee and even the creamers.
Okay, Peter, do you want to make a comment about that?
No, just more to echo Catherine's sentiments. You don't get that report or you don't get that award with a modified opinion. So I said it's often referred to as a beauty contest award for financial statements, but me being the person I am, accuracy, it's that's what we're going for. Transparency and accurate reporting on a timely basis is the key element for that. The additional components of the ACFR, they said it just provides better context for the ordinary financial statements. So, more to echo Catherine's sentiments. I said very proud of the crew over there, Kish and George and everybody in there. Said I remember, said it wasn't very long ago going into that situation, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't a very good situation. And, our hope and goal, and we're continuing to push that way, is just to have that trust in SAM, that they are operating at a level, and like I said, with trying to provide full confidence to all the member agencies that SAM is doing what they're supposed to do from a financial standpoint. And that the GFOA award, I think, goes a long way in proving that. And we're going to continue to work hard there.
Thank you, Peter. Catherine, do you have your hand up again?
There were a couple other items. Status update on the non-domestic wastewater source control program permitting. It was a non-controversial item. This is what had caused so much anger and angst and criticism and problems between agencies was with the $1 million that we hadn't expected to spend on BOD problems. And we have managed, and our permit was at risk, to be real honest. We have managed to wade through all of that stuff, and all of the businesses needing permits now have the permits, and we have a testing program in place, and it's all good. And the other 2 items were just minor policy and accounting items, and but the first 2 were they read on the agenda like they weren't much, but boy, when you know the history behind them, they were each a big deal.
And thanks to you, Catherine and Rick, for having waded through those issues for the last couple of years, and kept us alive there. So we appreciate your effort, to Clemens and Peter, all of you for being involved in that. All right, so we'll go on to Christine Fitzgerald. Do you have an attorney's report?
Thank you, Director Harvey. I do not have a report, but I would like to take this opportunity to mention that Directors Lohman and Slater Carter will be recusing themselves from the real property items and closed session, specifically 77 Hart Street for Director Slater Carter and the other property, which
771 Rivera Street.
thank you, Director Decker.
Not at the
Yes,
same time.
yes,
But
or
only,
due to a conflict of interest.
yeah.
Thank you.
But they won't be doing that at the same time.
True, definitely.
So, okay, any director's reports? Anybody, any director? All right, and Clemens, so you have your general manager's report. Any additional comments?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any suggestions for future agendas or any requests, agenda items? All right, if not, we're going to convene in closed session in a minute. Three items. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Government Code 54956, case name City of Half Moon Bay versus Granada Community Service District et alia, Santa Clara County Superior Court. Second item is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code 54956, initiation of litigation, one potential case. And the third item is conference with real property negotiators. The first property is 77 Hart Street, Montara. And we're going to go into closed session. So it is 8:52. Let's meet at 9 o'clock. All right. Since I'm the president pro tem, we'll make it 9 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you.